The Miami Hurricanes, a team that a lot of pontificators and college football gurus were questioning whether they even deserved to be in the playoffs. Well, they're heading back home to Miami to play for the national championship game against the Indiana Hoosiers after slipping by Ole Miss 31-27 in the Fiesta Bowl. This is QB Unfiltered, my take. The U is playing for a natty.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement.
All right, guys. So in this video, I intended to analyze both quarterbacks. Ole Miss quarterback Trinidad Chambliss and, of course, University of Miami quarterback Carson Beck. And I'm going to say a little bit about Chambliss, but after watching the game and watching Carson Beck's performance the entire game, I just decided to do it on him because he made some absolutely clutch throws down the stretch. And of course, he scored the game winner for Miami. But I thought that this is one of his really solid games that he played this year with everything on the board. Okay. Throwing the ball, running the ball, decision making, leadership, vibe, aura, everything. So this one's just going to be on Carson Beck. I will say this about Chambliss. That dude is a baller. Okay. He can play. And he had some accuracy issues in this game. He forced some throws in. You know, Miami dropped 3 or 4 picks in this game, but man, he's got a quick release. He's got a lot of juice in his arm. He can hurt defenses when he pulls the ball down and runs. You know, and I also really loved his leadership and just his overall vibe that he gave off on the field and on the sideline. I think he's really well-rounded. And like I said, he's a baller. Okay, so if you've listened to this channel this year, I have done maybe 2 or 3 videos where I was hammering on Mario Cristobal and offensive coordinator Shannon Dawson's offensive approach with the Canes. And I said that I thought it was too buttoned down, too stuck in the mud, too slow. They weren't getting nearly enough touches for all their skill players. They weren't using the whole field. They weren't attacking coverages. You know, they didn't throw enough quick game. They didn't throw enough screens. Yada, yada, yada. So this game here was a real pleasant surprise for me and a tip of the cap to Shannon Dawson for his play calling, which I thought was pretty damn good. And I really got fired up in that fourth quarter when they put their foot on the gas pedal, went no huddle tempo. And we'll talk about the effect that that had on the Ole Miss defense and in particular, their defensive line. As always, like and share out this video. It really helps my channel out, guys. If you enjoy my take on quarterback play, you know, my unvarnished, unfiltered opinion, then pass the word and subscribe to the channel. QB Unfiltered. I really appreciate the support. Okay, before we jump into Carson Beck's stats and game clips, I've got a couple of observations about this game and also a couple of questions. Is it just me, or is it totally amazing that you've got a team that's playing in the semifinals, the Final Four, the opportunity to play for the national championship, talking about Ole Miss, and you show up to play like they showed up to play in that Fiesta Bowl? Offensively, they were out of sync, but defensively, they were brutal. How do you show up that way? They looked disinterested, unmotivated, and like they had never been coached on defense. Their secondary, horrible in tackling, horrible. There were 2 snaps that they blew coverages on. You know, one of them, Carson Beck made him pay with the long touchdown to Marion. But there was one in the first quarter where he missed Tony on an easy touchdown pass. And both of those plays, they had a DB in the secondary that absolutely brain jammed or was doing his own thing or whatever. I wrote down in my notes at one point, maybe in the third quarter, I said, there is no way in the world this is the same defense that played in their first 14 games when they went 13-1. I got to talk about the last play of the game. If they're not going to call pass interference or defensive holding, I'm talking about DBs or slot defenders on receivers, that's going to be a bad deal. Now, there were a lot of PIs called in this game, a lot of pass interferences, but there were also a number of times where there wasn't a call. And then we get to the last play of the game. Now, you ask Miami fans, they're going to say, hey, no harm, no foul. You ask Ole Miss fans, they're going to say, we got screwed on that last play. If you ask me, there should have been a penalty flag on that play for defensive pass interference. This dude was mauling the receiver for the last 10 yards that ball was in the air, and the official on the sideline was standing right there looking at it. Okay, you have to throw the flag. It doesn't matter whether it's a Hail Mary, whether it's the last play of the game, whatever. Okay, you cannot allow defensive backs to maul and hold receivers. End of story. Okay, so getting back to the tempo real quick before we jump into Carson Beck's analysis. You know, Miami ran 88 plays on offense, 88 snaps. They had 28 first downs. And Mario got his fix in that Fletcher and Brown carried the football between them 36 times, but they had Carson Beck chuck the ball, you know, counting the times that he got sacked or he ran and scrambled when he dropped back to throw. They probably called, 45, 46, 47 passes for him in this game, which meant that you kept him involved, you kept him focused, you kept his swagger, and you got the ball to your other skill players out there at the receiver position. So Daniels made big plays. Marion was huge in this game. Our guy, Malachi Toney, huge in this game. Okay, so 88 snaps, 28 first downs. They got the ball and touches to their skill players, right? They kept their blood flow up on offense, and they gassed the hell out of Ole Miss's defense. Ole Miss's D-line was toast on that last drive, and I've got the clips to show that and prove that. But man, that was fun to watch. And I'll tell you the biggest stat and what won it offensively for Miami. They had 19 third down attempts. That is a lot. 19 third downs. They converted on 11. That's pretty damn good. And on fourth down, they were 2 for 2. That's where they won the football game. 11 out of 19 on third down conversions and 2 for 2 on fourth down. That's where they won it. Okay, so let's get into the Carson Beck analysis. He looked dialed in mentally from the start. He had this look on his face that, I'm always looking at him when he starts games off because I got a pretty good idea on how he's going to play and what his mindset is by the look on his face and how he carries himself before the game starts. And that first series, he looked dialed in, and I think he stayed that way the entire game. His decision making was pretty good in this game. It was pretty good. There were a couple throws that were ill-advised. There were also throws that may have looked like he was forcing the ball to a guy that was covered. And in a lot of those cases, that was a result of Beck having his feet get him in trouble to where the ball was coming out of his hand late. And we'll talk about that when we get to the clips. But he looked poised. He checked the ball down. He did a hell of a job on doing his full field reads. And he made 2 big clutch completions on that last drive where he was keying right on the snap of the ball and snapped his eyes to the backside. One time he stuck a dig in there for a first down. The other time he stuck a curl route in there for a first down. So yeah, he was impressive in this game. His completion percentage was a little up and down. He struggled a little bit in the third quarter, but overall he completed 62% of his balls. And I thought that he played a pretty damn good game. One of the things that was telling to me was his reaction after he threw that pick. and everybody's saying, yeah, it wasn't his fault. The ball was popped up in the air. It was batted by a defensive lineman. There's nothing he could do about that. Yeah, that's true. But in the past, and even this year on picks that Beck threw, he had a look of defeat and hanging his head and all that stuff, which has a big effect on his teammates. The way he responded to that pick was beautiful in the Fiesta Bowl. He kept his head and eyes up and just stared straight ahead and went off the field and prepared to come back on the field and get after it in the next series. That was telling. Okay, like I said, tip of the cap to offensive coordinator Shannon Dawson. He started Beck off the right way on his first throw. I've been calling for more quick game this year. I just think, he excels with the quick game. And the first throw, which we're going to go over here when we talk about the clips, but Dawson had him run a little stick shoot route concept where it's just pitch and catch. And that was a great way for Dawson to start Beck off in this game. Statistically, Carson Beck was 23 out of 37. That's 62.1%. He threw for 268 yards, 2 touchdown passes. He had that 1 pick, and he also ran for that huge touchdown at the end, the game-winning touchdown. Okay, let's get into some game clips. Okay, first pass of the game for Carson Beck. And as I said earlier, it's the quick game stick shoot concept. They mirrored it on both sides. Okay, it's first quarter. It's 2nd and 5. Miami's in a bunch left with a single receiver to the right. They motion Marion across to the right. Ole Miss is in a 4-2 front, cover 4. So that's a zone. They're giving up the flats here on both sides, and Beck executes a GST, grab, stab, and throw, grab the snap, stab that back foot in the ground, and get the ball out. He has an either or here. He can throw the stick or he can throw the shoot. So he's keying right. Both these guys are open. They're easy throws. He takes the shoot route, easy completion, 8-yard gain, first down. Okay, now you can run the stick shoot concept all game long, and you may be asking the question, well, why in the heck aren't they? That's a good question. Okay, nice job by Shannon Dawson on getting Beck started the right way. That takes us to our second play. This is Carson Beck's second best throw of the game. It's second quarter. It's 3rd and 7. Miami's in a 2-by-2 formation, and Ole Miss is in a 4-1 up, meaning a 4-man defensive line. The center's uncovered, and they've got that middle linebacker walked up on the line of scrimmage right over the center's face. And they're playing cover 1 bracket on Malachi Toney. I would say that, I don't know what the percentage is on snaps that they bracketed Toney, but it was a lot. He drew a ton of attention. Now, Ole Miss runs a twist with their defensive line. I don't get this, but they're doing it. So out of that 4-man front, they've got a 1 and a 3 technique. A 1 technique is inside shade of the guard, and the guy that's on the other guard is in a 3 technique, which is outside shade of the guard. So on the snap of the ball, they're running a 1-3-6 twist, meaning the 1 technique's going hard into A gap or crossing the center's face. The 6 technique is slanting down into B gap. And then they take the 3 technique and they twist them all the way around to C gap. It's way too long and slow. They ran this twist a bunch in this game. I don't understand why. And the more tired their defensive line got in the second half, and particularly the fourth quarter, and they still tried to run this thing, I don't know why they did that, but they did it. Okay, to the right side, then the outside receiver's running a vertical. Toney's in the slot, and he's running a 2.5-yard out route. Okay, I don't get that one, but that's what he's doing. 2.5-yard out route. On the back side, the left side, they scissor release, meaning they're crisscrossing their receivers, and they're running double dig routes with tight end Elijah Lofton. He's the inside receiver after the scissors release. He's making the grab for a 15-yard gain. Beck takes a 4-step drop. It should be 3 steps, but it's 4 because his feet are in the wrong stagger, which means he has to take an extra step. So he takes the 4-step drop. He's keying the vertical route to the right to the 2.5-yard quick out by Tony. Nothing's there. He snaps his eyes to the backside, and there's Lofton on the dig route. And Beck throws a laser. This is Carson Beck's second best throw of the game. Okay, great decision, great throw, great poise. All right, this is the long TD pass by Beck, and it's a busted coverage by Ole Miss. Second quarter, it's 2nd and 6. Miami's in an empty formation, which they don't run a lot of, but they're an empty, which is no backs. They've got 3 receivers to the left, 2 receivers to the right. Ole Miss is in a 4-1, and then they stem that middle linebacker to an over position, so he's out over the tackle, and he even might be a little bit wider than that. But it's a 40 front, and they're playing cover 0 bracket. They're bracketing number 2 to the right, the number 2 receiver to the right with the slot defender and the safety, and what ends up being the number 2 receiver to the left with that walked out or over linebacker and the safety. They also dropped the 6 technique to Beck's right, so you're getting a 3-man rush from Ole Miss, and those 3 dudes that are rushing him are not very dynamic. Ole Miss's defense was a train wreck all the way around. This is the problem for Ole Miss. The safety to the 3 receiver side who's bracketing, he's going to dive down on that dig route, and the defender that's playing Marion in man-to-man and singled up in man-to-man just lets him go. So Marion's running by himself on a seam vertical. All right, on the snap of the ball, Beck keys right to that vertical, takes a real quick peek, sees something that he doesn't like, and snaps his eyes to the backside to that dig. That safety who's bracketing the dig route now is diving down on that thing from the inside, so that dig's taken away. Now, Beck isn't getting immediate pressure, but he feels like he has to get out of the pocket to buy himself some time. The timing's screwed up on this thing, so he rolls right. And as he's rolling now and scanning, he sees Marion running all by himself. And it's what Beck does next that is pretty dang awesome on this play. Instead of continuing to roll and attempting to square his hips and shoulders and throw that vertical on the move, which is a tricky ask, he pats his feet down and stops his momentum so that he's pretty close to throwing this from a stationary position. And as a quarterback, you're always more accurate when you're throwing from a stationary position. So this is a smart play by him. And then the last thing he does that I love is he puts a lot of air on this throw. Instead of throwing it flat, you throw it flat. And if you're not perfect, you overthrow your receiver, he can't catch up to it. So you don't have to be as perfect when you put air underneath it. He puts the right amount, drops it right in there for a big touchdown, 53 yards to Marion. All right, that moves us now to the jailbreak screen to Tony for the touchdown. It's fourth quarter. Things are starting to get interesting now in the game. Fourth quarter, it's 2nd and 11. The Canes are trailing now by 2 points, 19-17. Miami's in a bunch right with the tight end being the number 3 receiver, and they've got a single receiver to the left. He's got a condensed down, squeeze down split. Ole Miss is in a 4-2 front, cover 4. They motion Tony across the formation to an outside receiver on the left side, and then they run what I'm going to call a true jailbreak screen. Now, Tony's not coming back towards the offensive tackle and Beck, but I'm calling it a jailbreak because they are releasing their offensive line downfield to block for him. And just like the last one we talked about, they pull the left offensive guard on an influence pull to affect the linebackers in the box, their eyes and movement. And I think that the influence pull by that left guard affected the inside linebacker by freezing him for a tick, which allowed the tight end to be able to get inside of him with the angle to get a really nice block on him. You know, Daniels is on the backside of the screen, and I think he lucked into being in perfect position to seal that cornerback. You know, Daniels, cardinal sin for me, came off the ball, slowed down, stopped and turned to look to see what the hell Tony was doing. Daniels doesn't care what Tony's doing. Daniels needs to be locked in on who he's supposed to be blocking. So he just happened to, when he finally figured out that he did need to turn and look for somebody to block, he happened to be standing right inside the cornerback and could get enough of a piece of him to make it an effective block. The big blocks on this were by Miami's right guard. He got 2 huge blocks on this. And that's pretty impressive when you've got an offensive lineman that's able to get a piece of 2 guys, but he's the one that sets up Tony now to where Tony can cut off his ass, duck up inside a Daniel seal block, stick his toe in the ground, and go. Now, you know, I talked about Ole Miss's DBs and defense and their horseshit tackling earlier in this video. Number 29 here for them. This guy played this way the entire game. Missed tackles, whiffed on tackles, had suspect effort on tackles, and what he does on this play is pretty indicative of how he played this entire game. Okay, now let's talk about Carson Beck here. So we talked earlier on these screens on when he throws the ball, he's going to fade back away from the throw to absorb the blow. The other thing that Beck has to do, or any quarterback on these types of throws, that throw has to be right on the receiver, right on Tony's chest, right here. Okay, so that he can catch it clean and go. If he's working towards the tackle and towards Beck on a true jailbreak, he's able to run through the catch, stick his toe on the ground, and go. If they're running a bubble screen away from Beck, he puts it on him. He's able to catch the ball and go. The quarterbacks that throw footballs where receivers have to contort their body to make somewhat difficult catch, or any type of catch where they have to bend, jump, whatever, it just really screws up the entire timing of the play. All right. So Beck dimes this, and this looks like an easy throw. It's just a 10-yard throw or less, something like that, but it's key. The throw is key. And then once Tony catches the football, he's an athlete. He runs with vision, and he makes a huge play here. 36-yard touchdown pass puts the Canes out in front. That takes us now to Carson Beck's 3rd best throw of the game. Not only because this was a huge first down, but the fact that he even threw this ball to Daniels, who I'm sure a lot of people thought was covered like a glove. It's 4th quarter. It's 3rd and 6. There's 1 minute and 26 seconds to go in the game, and the Canes are down 27-24. This is a big play. Miami's in a trips left, or a bunch left, with the single receivers Daniels to the right side. Ole Miss is in that 4-1 up over that we talked about earlier, and they line up in a cover 2 pre-snap, but they play cover 1 bracket on Tony on the snap. And they're bracketing Tony with that slot defender and the safety behind him. Now, guys, you rarely see this. First of all, this is the very rare hitch route that most offensive coordinators in college football refuse to call. And here Shannon Dawson's calling it, and they've got a rolled up corner, and Beck throws it, which he should have thrown it. Okay. He just threw it a little bit late. Now, what I used to tell my quarterbacks, because we threw the hell out of hitch routes, if we faced a corner that was playing tight, rolled up, tighter coverage, we told the quarterback that on the snap of the ball, if that corner started to loosen up a step or 2 or 3, throw it. Put it on that receiver's outside shoulder, get it out of your hand on time. He can't stop it. The only time you're not going to throw it, if on the snap of the ball, he comes jetting up and jacks up, jams up, tries to reroute your receiver. Then you got to come to your next read progression, right? So on this situation here, this corner does start to loosen. The problem you can probably guess what I'm going to say on this. Carson Beck's feet are too slow, so the ball gets out late. For whatever reason, they don't have him GST in this. They have him taking a drop. All this should be is Beck catching the snap, stab that back foot in the ground, and cut it loose. Okay, so Daniels is open, but because Beck's dicking around with his feet, the ball gets out late, but the placement is perfect. Okay, he dimes the placement to Daniels. You know, this is the throw that I love to see Beck make. I was shocked to see it, but man, I love to see it. And Daniels did a hell of a job after the catch and diving forward for that first down. This was a big play. And Carson Beck's third best throw of the game, not only because of the ball placement, but his decision to stick the hitch route in there. All right, this is Carson Beck's best throw of the game, and this is clutch and poised. This is the throw that my boy Herbie called a gutsy throw. It's fourth quarter. It's 3rd and 10. The ball's on Ole Miss 36-yard line. There is 1 minute to play in the game, and the Canes are down 27-24. Miami's in a bunch left with a single receiver to the right, and they motion number 3 across the formation. So now they're in a 2-by-2. Ole Miss is in a 33 box, which is a different look for them. It's a 6-man box, but it's a 3-man front with 3 linebackers. It's a 33, and they're playing some type of zone coverage here. Now, there was some confusion and some adjusting going on right as the ball was snapped by Ole Miss secondary, but they're playing some sort of zone. Now, when I show you the end zone clip of this play, I want you to check out the 3-man pass rush that Ole Miss has, and you tell me that tempo doesn't obliterate the defensive line in the fourth quarter. Also tell me on this, what in the world is the Ole Miss 6 technique on Miami's right tackle doing? Okay, now Malachi Toney, you know, he can do so many things for you. And one of the huge benefits that he provides for Dawson and Beck and Miami's offense is what he does to a defense when he doesn't have the ball. He gets a lot of attention. So we talked about him getting bracketed for a lot in this game, which means he's getting, he has 2 guys playing coverage on him. On this play here, he's running a little snag route. So he's driving inside towards the box. He's sinking down. He's reverse pivoting, and he's working back out to the sideline. That route got the attention of 2 or 3 of the Ole Miss underneath cover guys, and it made the completion that Beck's about to throw possible. So Beck takes the 4-step drop, not the 3, the 4, and he then takes a hop step and a pause. The reason he's pausing is because when Toney snags back out towards the sideline, he's got 1 or 2 defenders that are sliding with him, and Beck is waiting now for Marion, who's running the dig route in behind them, to get into a lane for Beck to see him and cut it loose. That's why he's got the hop and the pause. And then Beck throws an absolute seed on this throw. Hits Marion right in stride, tight spiral. This thing was smoking going through the air. 16-yard gain. This was a clutch throw. Minute to go, 3rd and 10. This was Carson Beck's best throw of the game. All right, another great job by Beck of keeping his poise and coming to a backside read for another big clutch completion. Fourth quarter, 2nd and 11. The ball is on the 19-yard line. There's 37 seconds to go in the game, and the Canes are still down 27-24. Miami's in a 2-by-2 formation. Ole Miss is playing a 4-2 front, and I think their coverage is quarter, half. And then on the snap, they drop the 6 technique, who's lined up over the right offensive tackle, which means they're running a 3-man rush. The Canes are running a fake punch screen to the right. Okay, so they've got the outside receiver to the right who's punch screening it. And then they've got Toney who's showing that he's going to stock block the corner. And then he wheels it upfield on a vertical. Now, of all the things that I love that Tony does, his feel for the game, his smarts, his toughness, his playmaking ability, this play is not good by him. And I don't have a replay on this, and I'm not sure how good you can see this when we show the clip, but Tony does what I call a Frankenstein on the fake stock block, meaning he goes upfield a step or two, goes outside of the cornerback, and he's going to fake like he's stalking. So he puts his hands out like this, like he's Frankenstein, walking in the old movies. And if you want the corner to go, bullshit, you're not blocking me, then use the Frankenstein technique to fake like you're stock blocking. All right. So that's a show for another day. I was kind of disappointed to see him do that, but he's a high school senior playing big time college football. So he can get by with that for this year. All right. So anyhow, getting back to Beck. So he's keying Tony. The cornerback to that side gets depth. So that fake stock block vertical is out. Now on the backside, Beck snaps his eyes to the backside. Great poise. And on the backside of this now, they've got Marion running a curl route. Okay. Now the key to this play is the running back Brown, who's lined up to Beck's right, who cross-checks on the snap, which means he crosses Beck's face. He's cross-checking for pass protection. No one's coming. He leaks out on a shoot route to the left. That pulls the curl flat defender out with him and opens up that curl route to Marion, just the way you draw it up. So Beck keys right, pump fakes, wants to throw the fake punch screen vertical, not there. Snaps the eyes to the backside. They get that shoot route that pulls that curl flat defender out, and there's the curl route to Marion. This is another clutch throw, 11 yards and a first down. Okay, and finally, getting back to tempo and what it does to the defensive line. This is the game-winning TD scramble by Carson Beck, which is awesome. It's awesome. Puts him in the national championship game. As an offensive coordinator and a quarterback coach, though, Carson Beck should have thrown a touchdown pass on this play to one of two guys. So let's talk about that. Miami's in a 3-receiver look to the left and a true tight end to the right. They motion Daniels from outside down to a bunch left. Ole Miss is in a 4-2, and they're running that slow-ass, stupid 1-3 going around the world twist to C-gap, which has no chance. Check out Ole Miss's D-line here. They are gassed, cooked. It's over for them. Okay, they can barely move with the tempo they've been playing under. All right, now, based on what Ole Miss is doing coverage-wise now, they're playing a match-up man coverage to that bunch side based on where the receivers release. Because on bunch routes, when they're bunched up tight like that, a lot of times they'll scatter release, meaning they're crisscrossing on their releases. And defensively, they'll have a guy sitting here, a guy sitting in the middle, and a guy sitting outside, and they're just waiting to see which receiver comes into their area, and once they do, they jump them in man-to-man. Now, it ends up here where they end up doubling Daniels, and Daniels is running a crosser, so he's out of there and takes two guys with him. The two guys that Beck should have thrown touchdown passes to are Tony and Marion. So let's start with Tony. Tony's running a little delayed option route, and he's got his defender on his outside shade. Beck should see this, and he knows that Tony's just going to hook it inside. So as soon as Tony starts to hook inside, all Carson has to do is throw it to his left shoulder, and it's touchdown. Bang, bang, it's touchdown. Now, let's say for whatever reason, Carson Beck can't get the ball to Tony. For whatever reason. He then lifts his eyes up now to Marion, who's running the dig route in behind it. And because we talked about that matchup man that they're playing, the cornerback who's waiting for Marion's route stays on his outside. So when Marion gets to the point where he's going to stick his toe to run the dig route, that corner is outside of him. And you can see what happens when Marion breaks it inside. All Beck has to do is put it on his left shoulder, and that's a touchdown. Okay, but I digress. Ole Miss's D-line has no chance here And this is as close to playing 7-on-7 for Carson Beck as you can get. 7-on-7 is just throwing the ball with your receivers and running back against DBs and linebacker with no defensive line out there on the field. That's pretty much what this is. And Beck sees that big gap. Man, I'm telling you, his eyes must have been that big when he saw that stuff open up. And it's just an easy cruise into the end zone for the game winner. That was a 15-play drive, guys. They went 75 yards of no huddle tempo. They took shots downfield. They got the ball to their playmakers. Okay, so this puts Miami in the national title game in Miami. You couldn't ask for a better scenario, except they're going to be facing the Indiana Hoosiers. Now, I'm telling you, the Hoosiers, I think, are a locomotive on the train tracks. This is going to be a tall order for Miami. Indiana is a well-oiled machine, extremely well coached, and they're playing with a ton of confidence. It's like a perfect storm for them. Coaching staff, their defense is nasty. They've got 2 punishing running backs, 3 really good receivers, and the Heisman Trophy winner at quarterback, who he is about as accurate a thrower as I've seen in a long, long time. The Canes are going to have to score on offense. So we'll see what happens. That's going to be an interesting matchup, and what a huge win for Miami. All right, guys, let me know what you think. Did I get it right or did I get it wrong? This is QB Unfiltered. And remember, always throw the ball short to guys who can score. See ya.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up.